Let's get more insights on this topic from Dr. Julio Teehankee, political science professor over at De La Salle University. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning. Good morning, Danny. Thanks for having me.
Prof, let's try to parse through some of the details here. No? Let's take a quick step back in history. So this is 1987, more than 3 decades later. There's a provision, but it requires Congress to still pass this into a law. Why has that provision never happened? Why are we still debating this until today?
Yes. Well, the 1987 Constitution was a product of people power, and it was supposed to consolidate and deepen democracy and restore democracy in our country. And one of the unfulfilled mandates and promises of the 1987 Constitution is Article 2, Section 26, which states that the state shall guarantee equal access of opportunities for public service and ban political dynasties as may be defined by law. And the problem is our Congress is essentially composed of political dynasties. As of last count, 81% of the House is composed of dynasties, and a similar number, 83%, of the Senate is composed of political families related to one another.
What would be the immediate impact if this is finally put into law? I mean, is this going to be happening immediately? Will we be waiting for the next administration? It seems like a massive overhaul, no? Is that even practical?
Well, after 39 years, they have sat on it, and they did not fulfill that mandate by the Constitution. No? It's an order by the Constitution for them to define political dynasty. And after 39 years, and there have been several attempts since 1987 to pass a law to curtail the political monopoly and the powers of the political dynasties. But of course, it was a result of a major crisis from within the ruling elites, the ruling class, and the political dynasties themselves. And this was of course, the flood control scandal, the biggest corruption scandal in our country's history thus far. And it has forced them, because of their, of course, they need to address public indignations and demand by the public to address all of these systemic and structural roots of corruption. And one of them, of course, is political monopoly, the dominance of power in a few political families all over the country. So this has forced even the president to declare the passage of this law as one of the priorities in his LEDAC, in his priority bills, one of the 21 priority bills, together with the reform of the party list law. So this has given some hope for some, and to be fair, despite all the weaknesses, the scandals, and the corruption that happened in the previous year, people were giving them a chance to clean up their own mess. And I think what happened yesterday, when the House practically railroaded a particular version of the bill, they have failed the call of history. For them, this was a critical moment in which the House could have redeemed themselves and have proven themselves to be real representatives of the people. Unfortunately, they came out with a legislative sleight of hand. They tried to use procedure, as always, to justify the passage of the bill. Danny, there are 25 House bills proposing the anti-political dynasty law. 25, imagine. And out of the 25 bills, they picked the one that's been the most criticized and has been observed to be the weakest and full of loopholes.
Can we get into that? You critique
Yes.
particularly let's say they didn't put into consideration the fact that you could still run for party list member and you could still be part of a political dynasty in that loophole. What other loopholes or what else has been watered down in this version of the speaker?
Yes, this is House Bill 6771, authored by Speaker Boji and Majority Floor Leader Sandro Marcos. No, and from the outset, among all the 25 proposed bills, most observers have pointed out that this is the weakest and the most watered down. Why? In the first place, unlike, for example, the version in the Senate that's been approved recently by the committee chaired by Senator Risa Ontiveros, the Senate version, while there are some comments, is a more practicable and negotiable compromise for those who want the maximum position, and the maximum position for civil society and the reform constituency is up to the fourth degree of
Correct.
consanguinity and
Consanguinity.
affinity, both successive and simultaneous, and even to include the party list. No, while in the version of the speaker's version, which ironically, out of the 25 bills, the committee, after going through the motions, no, going through the process of public hearings and even public consultations outside Manila, and inviting legal luminaries and members of the academe and the reform constituency, still they came up with the weakest despite all these inputs. No, and why is it weak? Well, in the first place, unlike, for example, in the Senate, in which it is clearly stated that the definition of political dynasty shall include national, local elective position, meaning to say everyone in that local position, regardless of separate government units within the local position, and the party list. In the version of the speaker, and now it has been substituted as the working draft, allegedly. They're saying this is just the working draft. This is the
Correct.
beginning. And this is the draft, since it's the speaker's draft, this is the draft that's been supported by close to 140 members of the
Members of the
House.
House.
And yet, what they have done is really just to say only one member of political family can run at different levels of government. National level, House of Representatives, provincial, and in the provincial you have the governor, vice governor, and board members, and
Okay.
then the city and municipal. The problem is only one, but there is no ban on cross jurisdiction and vertical. So,
Correct.
meaning to
Yes.
say, you can even end up with 12 members of your family legally running, and you're not violating the law. So this,
Okay.
if we allow this
Okay.
version,
But is
we
this
will end up.
version at least more stringent than what we currently have without any of this passing? Is there any, because it was mentioned that I think it was Rep. Erice saying mas bundat na dynasty ang ipoproduce nito. What does he mean by that? There's going to be more political dynasties with the
More
watered down
dynasty.
version?
In fact, if this version of the bill is passed, this is not an anti-dynasty law. This is a pro-dynasty law. In fact, it will legitimize political dynasties in this country.
But
It
can you
defeats the
clarify that,
purpose.
Prof? Because how does that happen if right now there are no safeguards and then you are putting, at least some are arguing this is the first step, this is not the final step, but it might be very difficult to put in fourth level. But your thoughts on that?
It's not even a question of the degree already. It's a question of the cross jurisdiction and cross
Yes.
constituency, because in a particular province, the collusion, the monopoly happens, and the lack of checks and balances happen when in a particular province, the congressman and the governor and the mayor and the vice mayor are all members of the same political family. And that is the source of the problem. By separating these government levels and allowing at least one to run at each level, then what's the
What's the
purpose of the
point?
ban? You're just allowed. One particular section of the House bill is really problematic. Like, for example, uh, item B of section 5, no? Which says spouses or relatives within the second degree are prohibited from simultaneously holding membership in the House of Representatives within the same legislative district. When you read it, oh, it's good. It bans.
Okay,
But
yeah. When you look,
Danny, imagine in a legislative district, only one member of the family can actually run. This scenario it might not be impossible, but it's improbable because no separate members of the same family will contest one legislative.
each other. Okay.
Yeah.
Unless they are rivals within their own
Unless
family,
there,
which
unless
happens also.
there's a
Yes.
family feud, but that's far and in between. So in effect, it's nothing.
Oh, 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 oh.
What
It's
should
what's
be
happening.
what should be the effective provision is that in all legislative districts. So there's a ban in whether it's the provincial, it's the legislative district, or it's the municipal, or just consider it as one local elective
Okay.
office.
Okay, but how can we do that from a practical perspective? Because from the way you're saying it, it's not a function of the degree, 2 degrees, 4 degrees. It's a function of the definition of a political unit. Dapat isa lang. But how practicable is that? That you only have one member that can run for any throughout. Okay, go ahead. But and what degree are
Because
you touting
it's
for?
been ordered by the Constitution, no? Ban political dynasties as may be defined by law, right? So there, from the very beginning, the principle is to ban political dynasties. In fact, they should not exist. If you follow strictly the spirit of the Constitution, ban political dynasties because that is the source of political monopoly, of corruption, of patronage politics, and clientelism in this country. So the reason why we are where we are, right?
Can we be more academic and define a political dynasty? I mean, you cannot call it a political dynasty if it's 1 or 2 people that have been in office a few years,
No,
to the same time. So how can we really zero in? Because I think it's 250 political dynasties, something like
Yes.
that. So not everyone
Okay.
naman is a political dynasty.
Well, that is debatable, Danny. So the simple definition is that, and this is not only from the academic definition, but it's in practically in all the bills filed both in the Senate and the House. Political dynasty is simply the concentration, consolidation, and perpetuation of power in a political family. So if there are more than 2, then that's already a political dynasty. It's a political family, right? So there's a need to regulate it. It's a form of monopoly or even oligopoly in the political arena.
Quickly, sir, your last thoughts on what should be the next steps here, because this is already probably going to the plenary, no? And as you mentioned, it was supported already by 1/3 of the House at least.
Well, yeah, of course, the Senate has already begun its own deliberation in the plenary. Today, the minority will pass will try to pass its own alternative as a working draft. And then it will be debated at the plenary, and hopefully more reform-minded members of the House, even if they're members of political families, would support a more principled compromise. And then the final step would be, of course, the BICAM. And what we propose in the Anti-Dynasty Network is that in the House plenary, the members of the House should each explain and, of course, identify their choice. It should be broadcasted. And just like what they did in the budget, there should be an open bycam for the anti-dynasty law.
All right, so
And
looking
then
forward to that.
the last
Please.
recourse is for us to push for a people's initiative. The people will be the one to pass a genuine anti-political dynasty law.
Which is still a possibility.
It is a very big possibility. Watch out.
All right. Thank you very much. We will be watching out for that. Dr. Prof. Julio Teehankee, political science professor at the De La Salle University and co-convenor of the Anti-Dynasty Network. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.